What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today we're talking about Only Murders in the Building, Season 4, Episode 2. This has audio description. It's available on Hulu, and let's go. I'm wearing a black baseball cap, black sunglasses, and Batman shirt today, so very dark for Only Murders in the Building. So whence last we left, they had just gotten the text, "Not your fucking friend." And we literally pick up almost exactly where that is. I mean, Charles has Zaz's ashes on him, and he's like, I can't wash this down the sink. Like, he's having, like, sort of this crisis where he's like, this is Zaz, and I can't, you know, what do I do with this? And so he actually spent like the first part of the episode sort of in sort of a somber mode, trying to figure out, I'm sure like it feels humorous, but at the same time there's something very human about what Charles is trying to do, which is like, this is a person, this is my friend. And even though you're like, at the same time somebody would be like, ooh, gross, this person, this is my friend, Charles is reacting in a more like, I need to preserve this. So he figures out a way how to kind of wash it off, and then he kind of keeps the water with the ashes from going down the drain, basically, and then he has it in a like a mason jar instead. So he's able to get it off of his arm. And then they can go ahead and investigate, but they don't let Charles investigate. They make Charles stay in the apartment. Basically, one, he has to. Mabel wants him to. They ordered this thing from Postmates that is going to show blood, like, so they can try to figure out where she was in the apartment. Because somebody did cleanup work, and she knows of this substance that shows like bodily fluids and stuff, and so they order it. So Charles has to wait for it. And they've also kind of realized that because Zaz was shot while looking like Charles, that maybe she was not the intended victim, that Charles is the intended victim. So he has to stay safe. So like with the blinds closed and everything, so nobody can see him in his apartment, they just like, stay here, deadbolt the door, we're going to go investigate. So across the way, I did not know, I don't know if sighted people knew this, but there's like another apartment complex just like right across from them, like the Westies. I feel like I've totally missed this. Um, and so they go over to the Westies and investigate the apartments that would be most likely to be sniped, to have the snipers. But um, so they meet a couple of the people. One of them, Richard Karn, who's been like literally everything, is plays a guy who has perpetual pink eye, and then they play cards with this family that has a ham in their bathroom. It's so weird. But I love how they always find these weird, quirky characters to put in Only Murders. So more cameos, you know what I'm saying? Like, just the show is full of just random cameos. But really, they want to get into this other apartment. But they also don't investigate Christmas Guy. Like, they didn't get to Christmas Guy. There were basically like 4 potential apartments, and they got through the first 2. There's another one that always keeps the blinds closed, but also has like a lockbox on the door. And then there's the 4th one, was like a guy who like leaves all of his Christmas decorations up like year round and is referred to as Christmas Guy. So we didn't see the last apartment. Christmas Guy is not featured yet. So I'm waiting to see what wonderful celebrity cameo we're going to get there. Um, and eventually, they do figure out that one of the notes that Zaz left behind ended up being the key combination for that lock to get in the room. And they also notice something that they had noticed in the other apartments is that it couldn't have been the other 2 because their windows are sealed shut, so they can't open them. See, in their apartment complex, their windows open, so they can open them and let in fresh air, which Richard Karn kind of seems a little upset about. Pink Eye seems a little upset about, that he's never able to open his windows. But in this apartment where there is nobody, it has this weird lockbox on it. The paint has been chipped away, so the window can open. And but but they also don't know who lives here. And there's a pig in the bathtub and that they accidentally set loose. It's so bizarre. I love this show. Uh, so weird. Meanwhile, back with Charles, Jan comes back. You remember Jan from season one, way back, the original killer in the building. Um, she has broken out of jail because she believes that something has happened to Sass. And she's has this weird encounter with Charles, who's on the phone with 911, who's on hold, by the way. There's 68 callers ahead of him that are in emergency. It's like, dude, anybody that deep into hold will be dead by the time. You know what I'm saying? Like that not those 911 operators are picking up a lot of phones with like just hello, are you there? You know, just like dead people on the other end of the phone, just nothing. Um, but that's way too many people. Like hire more people for 911 operators. Increase the pay. Do whatever you got to do. But 68 is should never get that high. It's bad enough if you're like, I'm third, you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't call 911 because we're chatting, you know? Like, I need somebody to talk to. Um, so, uh, Jan breaks into his apartment, is confused why he's calling 911, but it actually has nothing to do with her. She's covered in blood, but we find out that it's the guard's blood. It's not anybody else's. And so she tells Charles what she knows, and then she escapes before everybody comes back. And then breaking in is the cop from the second season is back. So we're bringing back characters. Everybody keeps coming back. Um, she's back in this. I forget her name, but she was from the second season. I love how they're just pulling out. They've been like, "Hey, who wants to come back?" And so she tells Charles, you know, like, "Oh, Jan broke out of jail," and he kind of reveals it, and then he says the murder thing. Now, what I really liked about the episode that I've stepped around, so that's what happens. That's a quick rundown of what happened this episode. But also, what's happening the whole time is that Steve Martin can see Zaz, and he keeps having these conversations with Zaz, and they keep sort of going through Zaz's career. There was a video that she did. The only time she ever appeared on camera as herself was as a documentary. And what I really loved, I thought it was a great little Easter egg. I don't know if anybody else caught it. It was funny because the audio description even mentioned it too. So props, shout out to the AD team on this, because they pointed out that in the thing, it's the show that they're watching. I can't remember the name of the episode, but um, it's season 2, episode 4, which is you know, the inverse of this, which is season 4, episode 2. So the episode she's on is season 2, episode 4, and we're on season 4, episode 2. And I'm like, that's has to be purposeful. That somebody is doing that on purpose, and I love it. So, but I also love the moments that Charles had with Ghost Zaz, and looking back on their career and just talking about all these moments and his realization and the mourning the loss of a friend, of really recognizing what Zaz meant to him and all the things that Zaz did for him throughout his whole life. And it's really fucking great moment, really beautiful moment for these two. And Steve Martin and Jane Lynch both really owned this episode. Yes, what the other two were doing was furthering the plot, but what really ended up being nice here were the moments between Steve and Jane. So I really like this episode a lot, and I'm intrigued. And it's hard if I don't have a burner board right now, because it's really hard because none of the new characters have appeared in more than one episode, because like we went out to Hollywood and we got introduced to all those new characters for the movie, and then they went over to the Westies. So we've never had a killer that's only been in one episode. So I can't really put anybody on a radar until they repeat somebody, until somebody's like, "Oh, I'm back." You know what I'm saying? Until it's like, "Oh, well, I'm in another episode." So Like, it could be Zach Galifianakis, but I don't think it is. But, it's hard to be like, "Who is it?" I don't know, we're only 2 episodes deep, and nobody's they had a bunch of new characters for the first episode, and they had a bunch of new characters for the second episode. Who's in the third episode? I don't know. So, that'll help me maybe gauge a little bit more as to, like, because I don't think it's the returning, it's not the cop from season 2, it's definitely not Amy Ryan, because she just came out her timeline wouldn't have, I mean, they just burst into the thing because she just broke out of jail. She didn't have time to the timeline doesn't, she couldn't have been somewhere with a sniper rifle to shoot Zaz and then pretend that she was concerned about Zaz, and that can't be technically Zaz's blood or whatever. That's not going to be the twist. um because the police response to this would be like so slow. They flew out to California. You know what I'm saying? She would have needed to escape from jail a long time ago. So for that to happen. Anyway, but yeah, so it's not Amy Ryan either. But she did kill somebody, get out of jail though, because she's covered in blood. Brains, actually. Anyway, yeah. I'm gonna give Only Murders season 4, episode 2 an A. Anyway, hopefully you're gonna stick with me on this. Eventually, I'll start coming up with like, who do I think did it? I actually don't think we've seen the person who did it. To be totally honest, I don't think we're at that point yet. Um, if I had to pick, if somebody was like, "No, you've seen the killer. Who have you seen?" I would go with Richard Karn. And you know, the eye patch being bullshit, and the eye and stuff like that. I would go with maybe that being a ruse, and something having to do with the scope or whatever. And uh, like, I could see that. I could see them trying to pull something out of that. But I'm not feeling it. But if somebody was like, "No, you've seen the killer. He's in the first 2 episodes," I'd be like, "I don't know, but it's got to be him then." Because the problem is the other house has like multiple people in it. You know what I'm saying? So like, did they all do it? Did one of them do it? It gets a little bit more confusing when you have like when the family with the ham family, with the weird game that they were playing. But the other dude lives by himself, so I don't think it's any of the movie people right now. They haven't given me a reason to believe that, although the writer was maybe a little shady. But that's it. So next week, I'll see you guys on the other side.